Well, myself, Santosh. I'm working as a manager at Microsoft, and along with that, I'm also taking care of the training part in KSR Data Vision. And I do have around 9 years of experience working with data-related technologies, including data science, data analyst, and data engineering. I have experience around working with around 80 projects in different domains with respect to telecommunication, healthcare, e-commerce, and banking. And for the last 5 years, I've been training people in different technologies. Let's start with a pipeline. Now, 99% of all of your projects will be stored in ADLs or block storage. Okay. Or it could be in SQL Server. Okay, this three only. Rest of the 1%, right? It may be in other storage. What are the other storages available? If you go and check, right? If you go and check what are the other data sources available, if you go and show in the portal, portal.azure, if you see here, if you go here, if you go to create resource, create database, what we have tried is Azure SQL database. Okay, but most of the times what happen, I mean, sorry, if I go to the storage, right? If I go to the storage, we have tried ADLs, okay, and not Gen 1. Gen 1 it is going to retire on next year. And in the storage account, we have created ADLs Gen 2, and we have also created block storage. Okay, when I say 99% of the data, that means majority of all the projects, all the clients store in these three only, and mostly preferred for sources ADLs. SQL Server also we use it, but where? We use it at the destination side. We use it at the destination side. Okay, but majority of the data, if you see, it will be in ADLS and block storage. And there are other storages as well: Azure File Sync, Azure Net Files, Azure Data Box. All these are storage accounts which can also be used. Very rarely we use this because of the cost. Okay, now this is done. Now coming for the transformation. Well, we do have transformations that was possible by using Azure Data Factory, but now we have used Databricks. Okay, and from the Databricks, we are again going and putting in Azure SQL database. Now, this is a pipeline that we are going to follow. Okay, and in order to execute the job, we can use ADF. In ADF, there is a option called pipeline. Okay, in the pipeline, you can select. Initially, if you remember, when we were creating the Azure Data Factory, we selected in the pipeline data flow we selected, and there is also thing which we can select, that is Azure Databricks notebook you can select, so that automatically it can be generated. Okay, from there onwards the steps are same. You can monitor, you can set the triggers. There are three type of triggers. You can set it and you can run the notebook. Okay, but what we are going to experiment today will be this one, this part. Okay, this part we are going to experiment. Now let's go one by one. Since we have got the data from ADLS, okay, what we have done in the ADLS, this is the ADLS. I have created two containers. I mean, one container, and I have loaded some two files. If you remember, we already have implemented this FS broker and intermediate broker, that is a investment banking data. Okay, so investment banking data, what we have done, we have loaded the data, like one into intermediate file and one is an broker is full dealer broker. So both the files we are getting. Now it may differ. One can come in a JSON format, one can come in the CSV format, everything. Now, the first step is already we have the data. Okay, the first step is we already have the data. data is available. Okay. Now what you need to do, you need to create the cluster. Okay. So when you're doing a cluster, remember one thing, the very important one is when you're doing a cluster, you need to set the cluster and you need to set the secret scope. Create scope will be there. Okay, you need to create scope, and in that create scope, you need to add the key vault properties. Okay, don't forget this step. This is very important. Okay, so after doing this, I have set up the Databricks cluster now. Okay, so I have set up the Databricks cluster. Okay, so Databricks clusters also that we have already implemented each one individually. Separately, I have shown you SQL Server. Separately, I have shown you the Databricks. Separately, I have shown you the Azure ADLs. But today, we are going to see the pipeline. Okay, now all this is done. And finally, what is the destination? SQL Server. Now, SQL Server also I have set up. Just now I have set up. If you see, so this is a SQL Server. Okay, so this is a SQL Server, and I don't have any tables right now. Okay, now what I will do, I will go and run the pipeline code. Okay, so if you all remember, this is import PySpark. Okay, and then the second line, we already know that whatever the scope which you have created, right? The scope name which I have created is brick scope. Okay, and in this ADLS, here is where I have stored the password. The password that is the key to connect to your ADLS, I have stored there irrespective of whichever project you're working on. Even if you go to Google or Microsoft, this 2-3 lines will never change because this is all called boilerplate code. Boilerplate code is something which you run any application, these things are necessary. Why it is necessary? Because I am going and changing the configuration file. Whenever you are running a Spark job, initially they'll be setting up with some configurations. What will be the configurations? My configuration says I should have this many worker nodes, I should have this many of RAM, this many of memory. All these configurations will be set up. You are going and resetting that. That is where this spark.configuration of set I'm doing. Okay, then I'm loading. Well, in this, maybe I would have got 2 files in a CSV format. If JSON format, you would have got only one thing will change. What it will be? Spark.read.json. That will be the format change. Okay, you may be even getting the different formats in the different folders. You just need to point it to right path and right folder. Okay, and after that, I'm just seeing the results. So this is a full service broker data that is coming from data frame 1, and data frame 2, it is inter-dealer broker. Now, the possibility is different brokers are sending different data from different teams, right? Even in India, if you see, right, you have a investment banking, you get a lot of data from the outsource, one from the broker A, one from the broker B, one from the broker C. Similarly, now fortunately, the number of columns in the both the files are matching. Okay, suppose one person is sending 10 columns, the other person is sending 8 columns. In that case, when you're creating a pipeline, you need to check with your client. Okay, shall I take only the common columns, or you want the other columns and replace it with null? Okay, for example, if you are sending me 9 columns, I am sending 8 columns. So there's one column, right? How to replace it? Shall I replace with NA? Shall I replace with 0? Or I will remove from your file? What is the approach that you need to tell? I mean, you need to ask this question. In every team, there will be a data architect who can help you. Usually, the most preferred one is common columns will be selected, common columns. Only then your transformation will work. Or else if there is additional column, right? For the entire other data set, it will be 0 or null, which is not recommended. Okay. Now, after this, what I've done, I'm taking union. By taking union, this with union with this, we will get this. So this is a count of the data frame 1, and this is a count of the data frame 2, and this is a count of the data frame 3. Okay, then after this, I've got all the records, that is 3,64,329 transaction data. I've got it, and there are a lot of null values. And for that, what I've done is I have checked this many nulls are there, and for every null value, we have to go and fill like n. The reason why I'm filling n is if they have not attended WebEx meeting, and if they have not given the if they have not attended any sales meeting and all, it will be like null. I am replacing with n. Okay, after replacing with n, this will be the final count of missing values. It is not there. Okay, then what I'm doing, I'm calculating the final table with a percentage. So why this percentage is very important for us? This percentage will help us to understand have they really been loyal customers to us. Okay, so they have made around 3,865 transaction from the globally. That means my firm is also made 100%. So there are some transactions and some users where we can call it as a loyal customers. If they are purchasing 10,000 from the globally and only 1,000 from our firm, that means they have purchased only 10%. So we need to categorize them. Have they purchased globally more or from here? This all comes under analysis side. Okay, as we talked about analytics, we will be like talking about analytics, but what we are doing is we want to store everything into a single database. Okay, now the area which we got stuck was this part. Okay, so we wanted to write this in the SQL Server, because end of the day we always prefer data to be stored in the SQL Server. Okay, this SQL Server data, if they're storing in the SQL Server, it is easy for everyone to go and access it. Okay, you can simply go and access it by using Azure Active Directory links. Usually, whenever you go to project, right, they will give you some credentials. Just like we have a KSR, the organization which you go, they also will be providing you the email ID, okay, client email ID. With that, you should be able to access all the services, because you'll be given access based on your role, and after that you'll be running it. Okay, now if you see here, I have already run this job. Okay, it took around 4 minutes to run it. Okay, so what I'm doing is, this is my SQL Server host name, and this is my JDBC port, and this is my database. If you see here, so this is my database. Okay, and I'm giving my username and password here. I have given this in the real time. You can use your key vault. Key vault, we already know you can store your keys and secrets, where key will be your user, password will be your secret. Okay, you can use that in your real time. For now, I have given it's an open password, so I've connected it. Now I have to give the URL. So URL, it's basically like I'm connecting to SQL Server by using a library called JDBC. Okay, so what is this JDBC? JDBC is actually a connection privacy library which is installed in order to connect your SQL Server. So this is already predefined. I'm just accessing it. And what is the URL which I'm giving is I'm connecting through JDBC to the SQL Server with the parameters 0, 1, 2. Okay, 0 stands for host name, 1 stands for JDBC port, okay, and database equal to 2. What is a database equal to 2? Database equal to 2 means 2 will be the database. This is a database. KSR SQL will be the database. Now this is a URL. Okay. Now where is my final data? My final data is in the data frame final underscore data. So what I'll do, I'll simply assign a variable. Now this is responsible for data frame writer. That means this, whatever the data frame writer of any data frame which I give, right, that will be considered as an object for writing into the server. Okay, so my output equal to data frame of final data. Final data is my transformed data. Final data is my transformed data. In the transformed data, I can simply go and write my data frame, and finally output.jdbc URL will be the parameter. This will be the value. Table will be the parameter. This will be the table name. Mode I am writing as overwrite. In case if it is already existing, overwrite it. Properties will be this properties. Okay. Then we'll go and see here if it exists. If you see here, this is the final table that we have. Anyone will be able to access this, and you can also see that percentage from, and you can see some null values because divide by 0 is null, right? So over also he has not made any sale. My from also has not made sale. So 0 by 0. You should have handled this. Divide by 0, you should have put either NA or something. But other than that, you can see that this is the results. Okay. Now what I will do, I will rerun the entire intermediate results. For example, assume that okay. So assume that I will go and insert one cell below. Okay. What transformations we have written. I'll store intermediate results. Okay. Okay. I'll write this. Okay. Final data. I'll write it as okay. Group by broker type, then fund category. Okay. Broker type, fund category, city. Okay. Now what I'm doing, see here. In this broker type, in this fund category, in this city, how many transactions happened. Okay. Now this intermediate results also I have to store in a table. That is how happens in the real time. They will not dump everything into one table. Okay, wherever there is necessary, they will go and create an intermediate tables as well. If suppose everyone wants to go and search city-based data or a fund-based transactions, they can go and search in this table. So what I will do, I will simply go and create this. I will rerun the entire code for, okay. And what is my data frame? This is my data frame. This data frame has to be stored in the table. Okay. Now what I will do, I'll go and just call this as this one. Okay. Output. This broker's transaction is there, right? And I will tell broker transaction table. That's all. Okay. Intermediate broker transaction is having the city based, fund based number of transactions. I am giving this. Okay. I will simply go and run this now. What is error? Non-type object as Spark session. Is it having any null value? No. Okay. Got it. What is happening is we'll see what is the data type for this. none type. So it should be data frame, right? Okay, now you check the data frame. Okay, now it's data frame. So I have given show. Just try to understand. I had given show. Show is for displaying purpose only. So the data type, it does not have any data type as such. Now what I've done, I've just put collect. I mean, a collect you can put, or you can just simply write count. Now it will be in this format. Okay, now you can go and see what is there in this result. Now you can go and see. I'll give dot show. So now this is a data type. Okay, now it will go and execute. So anyone who wants to go and get broker information, fund category information, city information, or transaction information, now we can go and run this. Now I will write it. Now the job is executing. Okay, now the job is executing. If you see here, the job is executing. And if you can go and see once it is running, you will be able to see that output in the SQL Server. Okay, let's wait for this job to be completed. Once this job is completed, you can go and see this. In my project, right, in my client project, the data is coming from 8 sources. From 8 sources, we take it. And we do all the transformations, everything. And we actually push it to, again, 5 tables. Why tables? You may tell that, hey, we can put it in one table. Yes, one table you can put, but I am putting certain transactions into certain tables so that it becomes easy for the other people to go and access it. So some of the intermediate tables also, you can go and write it in the SQL Server. Okay, so all this passwords and all, you could have put it in secrets, but what we are really executing is our objective is to go and store the clean transaction data frame into a SQL Server. You can either push it to ADLs as well, but ADLs is not preferred because ADLs is a raw data format, whereas a transactions, you can put it in a SQL Server. Okay, so let's wait for this to complete. And once this job is completed, you'll be able to see the table in this. The table name, what will be the table name? Table name will come as broker transaction table. Okay, that table will be executed here. Still it does not come, I guess. It's still running. Okay, now this has actually been written. If you see here, the job is completed. Now let's go to the SQL Server. See here, this data has also come. Anyone who wants to go and see the broker transaction data can easily go and see in the results. This is what I wanted. Where it was, somewhere it was in my Excel format that was coming from different data source that I've put it in ADLs. Once I put it in ADLs, I've used Databricks for transformations. From the data transformations that I've done it in the Databricks, all the intermediate tables also I am putting into a destination. Now, these are all the clean tables. In case if you're already working, okay, in case if you get a chance to work with any database, nowadays, the data's quality is improved a lot. You can never see any missing values. You can never see any junk values in the both the tables. See, this is final tables. If you see here, this also will not have any missing values. I mean, missing value in the sense, forget about this one, which I should have handled it. Apart from that, if you see here, wherever they did not attend n, y, n, you will never see any null values, because that is what the transformations we have done. And we are also storing the intermediate results to our next table, which is this one. This is how it looks in the final project data, where most of the data which you're getting in on-prem, that will be pushed into on-prem or SQL Server or CSV files, Excel files, flat files, everything you'll be simply dumping into your main Azure SQL Server with the transformations applied. Okay, just remember one thing, okay? Every interview, right? They'll ask you to introduce yourself. Okay, this is one of the very, very important interview steps. Okay, they'll ask you for intro. Keep it short and small. Okay, I would say that well, I'm working in Microsoft, I'm working for this client. My objective was to, we used to get the data from different data sources. We have used X and Y Z services and we've created a pipeline. Okay, once you do this, there will be some follow-up questions. Why you did not use Databricks? What was the need of Databricks? You say that we used for orchestration. Why Databricks? Why ADLs? Because ADLs Gen 2 was the main storage layer for us. It was very optimized for storing the data, and it comes with a less pricing. All that you can tell. Why Databricks? Well, our data was very huge, so we have to do all the transformations. For that, we have used Databricks, PySpark. So all this you can tell. Okay, and remember, the second part, 100%, it is going to be questions on Python and SQL. If you are very good at Python and SQL, then 100% you can clear the interview. After asking a coding question, nowadays everyone is asking coding. They'll ask you how to create a table in PySpark, how to read JSON file, how to read CSV file, right? How to write a group by or a simple scenarios they will ask you to write a join condition by using SQL and Python. And nowadays they're asking any requirement. Okay, they're asking any requirement. Let's say, for example, country by sales. Okay, this country by sales, they're asking in all three languages. Write it in SQL, write it in Python, write it in PySpark. All three we have seen, but I want you to remember this. This is a very, very important question. Any question they're asking, they'll ask you to write in all three, because PySpark is one which is tested in most of the interviews. Okay, and finally, they'll ask the Azure. This will be the flow. Okay, so be prepared for all this. Don't think too much about the other services. Whatever services we have covered in the class, it's more than enough. I'm telling you, none of them would have tried all 200 services. It all depends on the scenario based. Okay, you can skip HT Insight. You can say that whatever HT Insight was doing, our Synopsys is doing, our Databricks is doing, so we use Databricks. Right? So try to manage the interview. It's not about how many questions you answer. It's about how you manage the interview. I'm a person who have selected a person who has just answered 3 questions out of 10 questions. And I've also rejected a person who has answered 9 out of 10 questions. Right? It's not about right answers. It's not about wrong answers. It's about how you manage it, how confident you're speaking about the pipelines. Simply, if you go and read it and come, no, everyone will get to know that you have been prepared for it. Okay, so have some. It's again going to be a video call, so you have some gestures, show some actions, and present it well. That presentation skill will lead you to getting the offer. Concentrate on these 5 things. Rest of the things is like easy. Then they'll ask some data warehouse questions like fact table, dimension table, factless tables, and how do you create a data warehousing systems, and what are the destination tables you have used. All this you can say. Usually what we do is we use same Azure services, right? This is Azure SQL database. Okay, some of the people, what they do, everyone will not be having access to Azure, right? So they will push it to something called Snowflake, or they'll push it something called AWS. You need not have AWS knowledge as long as you're applying as a cloud engineer. Your cloud engineer means they look for all three cloud knowledge, but you're looking only as Azure data engineer. So you can say that till Azure, it was my responsibility. From Azure, we have copied the data to your Snowflake. In ADF, we have something called copy activity, move activity, and pipelines we have. There you will be copying the data from your SQL Server to Snowflake, and Snowflake let the people use. So that way you need to manage it. Just be prepared for all this. Okay, so with that, we have completed all the topics. And in case if you need any special topic to be taught for you, you can reach out to us. We will plan it for a special class, and we will be still continuing it, and we can keep in touch with us. Okay, thank you all.